Welcome back and thank you for watching NTV. My name is Ben Mwine, and with me in the studio is the FAO representative to Uganda, Mr. Alhaji Jallow. We've also got the Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture, Crop Resources, Professor. He's got so many titles: Honorable Professor, Dr. Zerubabel Nyira Mijumbi. We're talking about the World Food Day, which is going to be next week on Tuesday, and the theme for this year is agricultural cooperatives, key to feeding the world, which is very important for you, of course. Before we went for the break, we're talking about cooperatives and the role that they have. We'd like to get back into a bit more meat regarding cooperatives and talk a little bit about what a cooperative is. And I'll go to Mr. Jallow here. You've got a cooperative, you've got a society, you've got an association. What's the difference between all of those things? If we're a bunch of farmers and we just get together, what does it take for us to be regarded as a cooperative?
Yeah, I'll give an example later on, Ben, but the essential thing now is to know that cooperatives are associations, actually. And they're actually association, a group of women or men that actually come together and form jointly owned enterprises. And there, actually, they generate profit, which is only part of it. Yeah. Because the cooperatives put people before profit. And this is why it is now being regarded as a business model with a social conscience. So that I think is a key thing that we have to note here, that this is a business model with a social conscience. So it's actually that they put people before profit. Yeah. They ultimately move to doing business on behalf of their members to get them more income and make them more comfortable and improve their standard of living. Yeah. I think that is very important to note.
Honorable Minister, you are giving us a little bit of a history of cooperatives in Uganda and the evolution. From Mr. Jallow's statement, are we anywhere near attaining that sort of business model for cooperatives, especially agricultural cooperatives in particular?
Yes. In fact, I'll go back a little bit to indicate that initially when the cooperative associations or the cooperative societies were established, and I had indicated 1993, sorry, 1933, that was when the growers cooperative society started, and now we are talking agricultural cooperatives coming in. The initial establishment of these cooperatives before the growers came in was really mobilizing savings and also giving out credit for the different aspects. So they had seen that there was a need to save, and there was a need also to borrow from what you've saved. Now when the growers cooperative societies came in, they introduced a new element that actually now the farmers could not only organize themselves for saving and also borrowing, but they should do it for a purpose. They had to do it for a purpose basically to produce, that is produce crops, buy inputs that were required at that time because they needed the chemicals that would control the pest and disease, and they needed to buy those ones. Then there was the issue that came in now, the marketing part of it. Then they came in basically, especially for cotton and coffee, they started looking at processing as well as marketing. So they brought the business element now in addition to production. And that is how they eventually saw the growth of business in the cooperative unions, cooperative societies, and a group of societies now would make unions. That's how you heard about Bugishu Cooperative Union, you had the Nyakatonzi Growers Cooperative Union, and all these others. Exactly. And they were doing that one. Exactly. They were doing very well. And some of these have actually persisted up to now. And they have done very well. For instance, the Bugishu, the Bugishu Coffee Cooperative Union has done very well up to this time. And you have some in the cotton sector in Acholi. They are also doing very well. In Kasese, Nyakatonzi is doing very well. So the issue is those good elements are the ones now we are revisiting. Because when the circles, these savings and credit cooperative organizations or societies are really cooperative organizations. And we think now we can start strengthening them and giving them a new face. The new face is to strengthen and deepen the interests and move away from this business of saying that, yes, it is a free economy, but in fact, the more organized groups of people will eventually compete and eventually be able to make it. Because business, the success in business is actually nothing more than competing and succeeding.
Yeah.
And I see the cooperatives really coming into the same area.
Mr. Jallow.
In that particular aspect, I think another element that we have to take into consideration is the question of ownership and also capacity building.
Yeah.
And those are two elements that we try to work with in the approach that we are using in improving livelihoods in Uganda. And we start actually with what we call farmer field schools, which has now been accepted in the communities. And if you go up to northern Uganda, you go to Karamoja, you go to southern Uganda, and soon maybe central Uganda, you'll find people getting involved in farmer field schools.
What's that? What's
and
a farmer
field schools are actually groups of about 25, sometimes 30 farmers who come together, and we work with them season after season, teaching them farming techniques. And now we have also improved the approach with village savings and credit schemes. And
do the farmers have to be in a cooperative, or it's just a school?
No,
that just
I'm
brings
giving
them
you
together?
now the process.
Okay.
Because once they get into those farmer field schools, and we work with them for a considerable period of time, sometimes it goes up to 18 months. So it gives you an idea of the intensity of what we are doing with them. So once they get into that training aspect, that's the capacity building. Now, after the capacity building, or during the capacity building, these people will come together and they see it as their own. And they move those groups, those schools, to forming networks. So you have the farmer field schools networks. So these networks encourage the people interactions, exchange of information and others. And from that step, they move to forming an association. Now, once they get to the association level, with the capacity building also, training them in several aspects, bookkeeping and others, then they are now almost ready. They express intent on becoming cooperative. And that's when they are ready, they qualify, they get registered at cooperative.
And then become a cooperative.
That's right.
Let me just take a
So that, I just want to emphasize that there is a difference from the cooperative people used to know before, that Africans don't like to hear. Because then it was like the government coming in and imposing, or government civil servants imposing their ideas on them.
Let me take
now
a quick
they're building up from below.
Yeah, we've got Hakim on the line. Hakim, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Where are you calling us from?
Thank you, please. Okay, I'm saying that the farmers have been discouraged by the way they are handled. For example, a kilo of maize now is at 400. But you can imagine maize brand is at 600. So people have been discouraged to produce more food, and even other crops, the prices are very low. So I'm asking, why is it that the government is not coming up to give fixed price for crops? Not that people are encouraged to plan. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Hakim. Thank you. When you're calling us, if you could kindly turn down the volume of your TV so that we can hear you much clearer, would definitely appreciate that very much. Hakim raising a point about the price and the discouragement that the farmers have. We'll take another phone call before we get to that, though. Hello, welcome to the show. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
This is Diga Francis.
So I think we lost that call. We'll probably take another in a minute. So Hakim was raising a point about how farmers seem to be discouraged because, well, that doesn't seem to be viable for them to get involved in agriculture, mostly because of the current pricing that they get from their products. Does it have anything to do with what we're talking about, us not being able to process?
Yeah, quickly before the Honorable Minister comes in.
Let me just take a quick phone call before you do that.
Okay.
Welcome to NTV. Thank you for joining us. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, hi Ben. My name is Grace.
Yes, Grace.
Musimami. I'm from the Agriculture Journalists Association of Uganda.
Yes, Grace.
Thank you for this show, and I would like to thank the Minister and the FAO representative in Uganda for turning up. My questions are basically two. One goes to the Minister, Honorable Minister. As you realize, we still have a problem whereby cooperatives lying Minister of Trade and your Minister of Agriculture that is talking about production. And most of the cooperatives, I am sure 80% are based on agriculture production, apart from other areas. How do you plan to reconcile these two ministries to be able to advance the same cause? And about NADS, we have the National Agriculture Advisory Services. Is it presently pushing for forming cooperatives, because they've already formed farmer forums, farmer groups, which are groups of farmers, and could this be what you're planning to turn into cooperatives? And to the FAO rep, you've been talking about Karamoja, you've talked about northern Uganda, you've talked about Kavale, some of the projects that FAO is carrying out there. Your Excellency, my question is, why haven't you focused on places like Busoga, where there is an overwhelming population growth rate, and then an emergency food problem is emerging, whereby there is absolute poverty, poor feeding? Do you have any projects that is aligned to Busoga region? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. Grace raised some very key points. You were saying something before we took Grace's phone call. You might want to do that and then maybe respond to what he's saying. You mentioned something about coming to Central Uganda. Maybe you want to shed some light on that.
No. I was saying soon we might be moving to Central Uganda to implement a project on adaptation of agriculture to climate change. Mm-hmm. That's what I mentioned. And quickly, before I move on to what I wanted to say about the cooperatives, is this Busoga region, Grace will have to excuse me for my lack of much knowledge about the geography of Uganda. You're
talking about central going towards eastern Uganda. So
that's right.
Jinja.
Yeah, Grace will have to understand also that we work for Uganda and through the Ministry of Agriculture. Yeah. And we actually get our guidance on where to intervene from the Ministry of Agriculture. And hopefully, I think Busoga region will be identified soon for assistance, and hopefully we'll be able to find the resources to work with them, because we don't have any discrimination as such. We are led by the ministry and the government, and once there is a need and we are led, there will definitely work in Busoga region. Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
You wanted to say something else before we go for
we just mentioned about the cooperative thing and why the Honorable Minister was talking about the pricing and the benefits. Yeah. And I have a strong belief that what we are driving at, and the cooperative element, is to gradually phase out the middlemen. And once we can get rid of the middlemen, these cooperatives or the farmers or the smallholders that we are talking about will directly now work with the people who are buying. They will negotiate their prices, and they will get a better margin from their produce.
That's actually a very big question that I'd like you to give a bit more time. So I'm going to have us go for a very quick break. When we come back, we talk about the role of cooperatives in the economy. How much empowerment do they give to farmers? The role of the middlemen, what role are they playing? How do we get rid of them? Do we need to get rid of them? And how do cooperatives play their role in that? And of course, the Honorable Minister also responds to Grace your questions about the line ministry that the cooperatives are under. That and much more when we come back. Don't go anywhere.